Welcome to Lead Different.
All righty. Today's conversation is one of those that reminds you that leadership doesn't have to be complicated to be powerful. I'm joined by David Handler, an executive coach who spent decades working with senior leaders across many industries, helping them cut through noise, simplify complexity, and find better ways forward. David has logged thousands of hours coaching leaders, and what really stands out isn't just his experience, it's how he shows up. He asks the questions most people avoid, challenges thinking that's been on autopilot for years, and somehow brings humor and humanity into conversations that actually matter. A big part of his work centers on helping leaders understand why they do what they do, how they lead, and what they truly contribute, so they can move past long-standing barriers and lead with more clarity, agility, and impact. This conversation is real, practical, and honestly, a whole lot of fun. Let's dive in.
Why not leadership? Why not lead different?
Welcome to Lead Different, the podcast that redefines leadership and challenges the status quo. Hosted by Daniel Dominguez, founder and CEO of Why Not Leadership. This show is your compass to becoming a better leader through the power of self-awareness. Good leaders foster teams that are engaged, empowered, and energized. Join us on this transformative journey as we equip you with the tools and insights to lead different. Get ready to challenge the ordinary and embrace self-aware leadership. This is Lead Different.
Subscribe now. Discover a new era of leadership. Lead different, because great leaders change the world.
How you doing, David?
Hi, Dan. I'm doing great. Thanks for that nice introduction. I appreciate you having me on.
I appreciate you being on, David. Since we met some years back, as I'm in my previous role as the Chief Growth Officer at the WHY Institute. My job was to find amazing coaches like yourself who could use one more tool in their toolbox to help their clients be even better. And you were one of those clients who has really not only adopted the WHY.os, but it kind of made it a big part of your coaching. So we'll definitely want to talk about that, and we'll talk some golf. We got to talk some golf because you've got that beautiful background. Is that your home course, David?
It is. You need to come to Houston sometime and play it with me. I owe you one because you took me to your course in Albuquerque.
You know what? I'm putting that on the list right now. That's going to happen in 2026, David. You be ready, though. I could show up at any time.
That works for me.
Sounds fantastic. Well, David, there's a lot that I talked about in the introduction. One of the most important things that I like to do, and sometimes we do it in the middle of the interview, but you're a fellow WHY.os coach, so I'm going to start with going over your WHY.os and then introducing you that way. Sometimes, especially when I'm working with people who, they recently took the WHY.os, so we'd like to talk for a while, and then I find stories in there as we're talking where they're living their WHY.os. In your case, we're going to lead with it. So, folks, those of you that are familiar with the WHY.os Discovery, David's why is simplify. So, in everything he does, he's looking to make things simple, boil it down to its essence, and keep things simple. So as a coach, I have found coaches with the why of simplify are geniuses. They take stuff that's complex and hard and difficult for most of us, and they boil it down to its essence and help us concentrate on the critical few. So his why is simplify. His how is better ways. So how he simplifies things is constantly looking for better ways to simplify. So when you talk about simplicity being such a key to success, and then you're always looking for better ways to simplify, you've got a great pedigree here for a coach, David, and is what is contribute. At the end of the day, what David wants to do, what he delivers, is a way to contribute to the success of his clients, his venture, or the people that he's working with. So David, why don't we start with that? How has it been for you? And how many years has it been since you discovered your WHY.os? I know we did that together, and then you became a coach. How long has it been?
Yeah, I think we're next month we hit 3 years. So 3 years using the why. This is my 23rd year as an executive coach, and it's been a wonderful journey. I embrace the why. One thing about my Simplify and Better Way is when I find something, I really latch onto it. The year of 2025 for me was about learning about AI. And my youngest daughter, we have 3 children. She's in her late 20s. And she said, you can't spell David without AI. So I like to simplify things to find a better way so that I can contribute to something better. I mean, it's absolutely me. It felt perfect the day you shared it with me.
Yeah, and you've really taken it to the next level. I know you use it, and you work with large groups. Tell us about, one of the things that will be helpful for our fellow leaders that are listening is what industries you work with. I mentioned them in the opening, but you also work with large companies. So tell us a little bit about how who your ideal client is and how you're working with them.
Yeah. Well, so it evolves, right? When I started, I had come from a sports television background, and then I founded and sold a sports travel company, and then I went into the franchising industry. So when I decided to be a coach in 2003, I focused on the franchising industry because it made sense to me to go what you know. And my goal was always to get into sports as a coach of athletes or whatever. It never happened. So I live in Houston. Anyone who's familiar with Houston know the energy industry is large here. So I eventually evolved out of coaching individual small business owners and franchisors, those who provide the franchise, into working with those in energy. And that took us through most of, say, the aughts and the early teens. Then I had a chance to work in healthcare. And the first time I coached someone in healthcare, I went, this is really what feels good to me and feels right to me. So since really 2015, 2016, I have focused strongly on the healthcare industry, working with CEOs of hospitals, working with CMOs, working with CNOs, so chief executives, chief medical officers, and chief nursing officers, and then coaching their teams. And that's really where at age 65, I find my joy, and I continue to focus. You mentioned LAH Insight. That's a coalition of coaches that myself and another coach put together, and we're able to place those coaches in larger organizations. So it's not just single shingle one-off David. It's we can take and coach many people in an organization.
Man, and I know you start as one of the things that led me to launch my own coaching business going into year 3, believe it or not, David. I think you soon after you joined, I went on my own. But one of the things that I really enjoy is going deeper in an organization. I mean, I think it's so much fun and enlightening to watch somebody learn their WHY.os, but that's an individual experience. When you bring it to a group and then they understand each other's WHY.os, and then they start implementing it into their business so that they're putting people in the right seats on the bus. But that's what, that's one of the things I do. I learned that with Jerry Lujan. How have you incorporated the WHY.os into what you do, and how is it making an impact with the clients that you're working with?
So it's interesting. I am certified in a couple of other personality style assessments. I have probably taken most of the ones anyone could name because I'm fascinated by them. And when you reached out to me about the WHY.os and I took it and you shared my WHY.os with me, it was just this light that went on. And this is a true story. I have a home office. Right outside that door is where my wife is. She typically works upstairs with what she does. And I went out to her, Dan, and I said, Kathy, I want to get certified in WHY.os. And she rolled her eyes and she said, another one? And she does not like any of those personality style assessments. She just thinks they're too hard to take. And I've made her take them all, and she just pushes back on them. So I said, I tell you what, take it. It takes 8 to 10 minutes. Mm-hmm. I want to share it with you, and then you can decide whether I get certified in it. 15 minutes later, she said, you need to get certified in this. It was so simple, and I'm a Simplify. She's a Simplify too. It's so simple. It's easy to understand. Most importantly, people remember it. One of the ones I'm certified in, the report is 32 pages. Another one I'm familiar with, it can be 75 pages. Mm-hmm. Who can remember all that? Who can even deep dive or wants to deep dive into it? I tell people with WHY.os, if you can remember up to 5 words, you're going to get your arms around this. So I have taken it to larger organizations, and typically I don't do like some people, 1,000 people in the debriefing. I usually have groups of 30, and somewhere in that 30 to 35 range is kind of the sweet spot. And what I work with them on is sharing what it is so they understand it, showing them everyone's WHY.os, and then helping them have discussions with each other about, well, now what are you going to do with it? And one thing that people can do with it is to understand themselves better. Right. I know that I simplify things. That means that I'm going to find the easiest, quickest route to do things. Mm-hmm. Side note on that, I was working a workshop with a group probably in the fall, and I gave instructions. It was an all-day workshop. I gave a 5-minute instructions on what they needed to do. I sat down because I've been standing for about an hour, and I looked around and people were kind of looking at each other. And finally, one person raised their hand and said, "What are we supposed to be doing again?" Yeah. And I realized I oversimplified. So I think that that's what really helps teams understand is, oh, well, when David's with you, he's not going to overcomplicate it. And sometimes you might have to pull out of him because he's going to oversimplify things.
No, that's so true. And that leads me to a question I wanted to ask you, David. So one of the things that I've found and tip for WHY.os coaches, really for any coach, regardless, David, you're certified in a few assessments. I've also got a few other assessments that I use. Here's what I have found with this one. And you're just a perfect example of that, the experience you had with your wife, getting the approval, right? The seal of approval to get certified. In 2025, I found almost every CEO I worked with said, "Hey, Dan, would you mind doing this for my wife?" So we had done the CEO's WHY.os, we'd done their executive team, and in some cases gone another level down in the organization, all their managers. But almost every CEO said, "Dan, can you do this for my wife? I think that it would benefit our relationship." And one CEO that I've coached one-on-one, he literally said it changed their life, knowing his wife's WHY.os. So in December, towards the end, when things are slowing down, but we want to get clients together and do, I did a gratitude dinner, but I also invited spouses and we did their WHY.os. It was, I think, 4 CEOs and their wives. And we put in some fun activities where they could exchange stories and stuff. And man, what a great time that we had. And my wife came, and so we shared our WHY.os because she's clarify, contribute, and I want to contribute to everything, and she's got a lot of questions about why I want to contribute to everything. So just a tip for anybody, get couples together. It's a fun, and we're all creative. You'll figure out a way to make that a fun experience for everyone. What's a breakthrough, or what's your biggest learning from 2025, David, that our CEOs and fellow coaches can learn from you? What was the big breakthrough in 25? You said you got into AI, but I'd love to hear more about where you took that journey.
Yeah. So my biggest breakthrough, I took a 3-week class on AI back in January of last year. And the interesting thing is I was introduced to AI with another group of coaches in 2 weeks after it debuted. Where was it? 2022 at Thanksgiving weekend, I think. And I was introduced to it, get this, Dan, by a 78-year-old coach.
Yeah.
And I remember we were on a Zoom call, and there were probably 10 of us, and he gave a passionate talk about how artificial intelligence was coming and how it would change the coaching industry. And I listened, and other people weighed in, and I said, I don't see this taking over coaching before I retire at age 70. And remember, he was 78 at the time, and he looked right into the screen and he said, "Don't kid yourself, David." And so I said then, well, I better learn about this. And I started off on Claude, and then I went to ChatGPT. As you might guess, same as assessments, I played around with most of them.
Sure.
And what I finally hit on is there are probably 100 organizations or groups or people who are creating a coach me type thing. And so I don't want to compete in that area. There will be a time when people of certain businesses or ideals will use a AI chat to coach them. And I just thought that's really not the way to go. So I've been working on something that has a slight twist to it. And we're hoping to roll that out in the first quarter. I think it will allow us to really find a place that's unique and will help a lot of people. And that's kind of where I am in my career now. I just want to do things that make a difference. That's why I embrace the WHY.os. I really feel it does impact people. And I feel that it does help people understand themselves, their relationships, and the people around them. So that's probably a big breakthrough for me is don't chase what everybody else is doing. Try to find something that's unique and will help a lot of people in a different way.
I love that. And it's so true. There's all kinds of ways you can take that and you can do what everybody else is doing. My how is challenged. So, David, I don't like to do anything everyone else is doing. And I definitely don't like to do it the same way that they're doing it. So I like to put my own spin on things. I think we all do to some extent. In your way, you simplify things different than other people. So in a way, you're challenging it also. One of the things that I know, and you talked about it, it's how you separate yourself from the pack, right? So you did a lot of homework, learned a lot in 2025, and then you found a way to make it. What I love about Simplify People is you probably found the one thing that can make the biggest difference, and apply that, right? So it's simple, but it's not easy. And that's the other thing I like to warn people. And they think, Simplify People, and they're always just boiling things down. It's not easy to do that because you probably read a lot and you studied a lot in order to get to that one little thing that makes a big difference. So kudos to you. I'm looking forward to it. I might have to have you back on a part 2 to tell us about this. I know you're being a little bit secretive about it because it's not launched yet, and that's okay. But when you launch it, let us know about it. We'd love to feature you and share it with our coaching audience. The other thing I'm doing in 2026, David, is really one of the things I found is I had grown my network to such a big size. Being at the Y Institute helped that quite a bit. Helping over 3,000 people discover their WHY.os. I know a lot of people. However, one of the things that I wanted to do is just niche down. And what I found in 2025 is my faith-based clients were the ones I just really clicked with. And I've done more one-on-one coaching is really where I focused. And so one of the questions I'm asking people is how has faith impacted your career path, David? Where does it fit in your life? And whether you use it in your coaching or not, that's not the question. The question is, I'm all about, and this is new, and I think it's always been leading an integrated life, being the same person in the pew on Sunday that you are in the office on Monday. And I think we can all relate to that. But tell us about your faith journey and how it impacts your business and your work.
Well, I will say I do have a lot of faith. It's not always bigger than a mustard seed, but it's always there. Here's the short story just comes to my mind of how it's impacted my life. If we go back 37 years ago, I was working in Dallas, Fort Worth at a independent syndication company doing sports television. And I received an offer to go to, some people might know about TBS, some people might know about TNT. Well, TNT was coming on the air and my former mentor was taking it on. So he was going to be the TNT sports executive producer. And he offered me a job as his senior coordinating producer. And I didn't know what to do because he offered me that job 1 week after I met someone who floored me. And so I went and sat in the chapel at our church, probably said a rosary, probably sat there for an hour. I know there was no one around. I know I was singing my favorite songs right out of the hymnal. And thank goodness no one was around to hear it. And I just said, God, I don't know what to do here. I think I've met this person. I believe you brought her into my life. And yet I got this chance to move to Atlanta to go to work for TNT, which would have been a great career move, no question. And I walked out of there, and within an hour, I knew the answer, and I turned him down. And he told me, and remember, he was my mentor. I'd worked with him for 3 years. He brought me from handing out cards to the announcers to sitting in the number one producer chair at our previous place where I still was. And he said, I just want you to know, if you turn this down, you're probably not going to get another opportunity and you're going to have to make a career decision. So stayed around, kept dating Kathy, got married a year and a half later, 1989. Kept the faith. 1995, I spent 36 weekends on the road. We had 2 children. A third one would come later. And I came to her and I said, I'm tired of missing birthdays. I'm tired of missing family events. I'm tired of leaving on Christmas Day to go do a bowl game. Mm-hmm. I want to get off the road. So with faith, I left my career, and some people, announcers who are still on the air at ABC and ESPN that I had brought on in my younger career, in their younger career, said to me, why are you doing this? You're crazy. But I just knew that faith, that was not supposed to be my career path. So I left it to career. When I started being a coach, Kathy said to me, look, I've been with you through 3 career changes. This is your last one. So don't come to me again and say you want to change career. So here we are 23 years later. I got about 5 more years of runway. And I think I'm going to be able to meet her wish of not overcoming her with another career opportunity.
You know, you're so good at it. You'll find, you know, Jerry Lujan and I, we're going to have breakfast on Wednesday. He's a good friend of both of ours. And he always, you know, he always talks about, you know, this is work you can do, like you said, into your 80s, because you just do maybe less, right? You're working with less people, and so you've got a five-year goal to stop doing it, and hopefully meet Kathy's goals. You've got grandchildren now, right?
Yeah, we just found out we have a third one on the way. So,
man. You're about to pass me. I've got 2, and I think we're stuck at 2 for a while because Sophia's only 14, and I don't know that Jazz and I would want to have any more, but you never know. So we're very blessed with a 4 and 2-year-old. How old are yours, David?
4 and 1.5 today, and coming in September. So
coming in hot. So yeah, they're very similar in ages to mine. They're a lot of fun at that age. So David, great answer on the faith question. So one of the things that I have found, and this is hard for all of us to do, especially for coaches, us type A's, you know, the people we're working with are usually at the top of the house. But one of the things that resonated with me is you gave it up. You prayed, and then you said, okay, what should I do? The harder part that I have when it comes to that type of prayer is listening, and then doing what comes back to you. Sometimes it comes back to you. And, you know, I've heard someone say, you know, God's going to give you what you need, not what you want. Yeah. And so that had to have been a very tough decision for you, because that was your love, sports, television, right? And a great opportunity to go. Would you have moved to Atlanta?
Would have moved to Atlanta. I later had an opportunity to go to work for ESPN. Remember, that was 88, 95 ESPN offering. That's when I decided. Here's a true story. They flew me to Bristol, Connecticut, and I'm making the numbers up, but I think gas in Fort Worth, where I lived, was $2.50 a gallon. Right. And they picked me up at the airport. I'm in a really nice car getting driven to Bristol, Connecticut, and I see we stop at a lot, and I go, gas here is $4.50 a gallon? Yeah. And I thought, they're not offering me that much more money. So it was an easy decision. And that's when I decided to leave television. Was I knew if I didn't take that job at ESPN, I needed to go do something else. And it's funny. My word of the year, I hope you can see this, is allow. And there's a book I read one time called 3 Feet from Gold. And the short story is a guy was 3 feet from gold during the gold rush. He had lost everything. He gave up. He sold his stake for $100 in 1849. Moved back to the East Coast, made it very successful, but that stake turned out to be one of the biggest gold veins in Colorado, or maybe it was in San Francisco, and he lost his fortune. And I read that many years ago, and I have found throughout my life that just allowing things to happen is very important. And when I said earlier, sometimes my faith isn't even the size of a mustard seed, I think the reason is I sometimes, right at that point, when it's all going to happen, I get scared, I get hesitant, and I pull back. And so for this year, especially with this new AI tool I've come up with, I just decided, go for it. It's either going to work or it's not. Maybe this is the simplified, don't overthink it, better way. I think I've come up with a better way to do something, and then I will have contributed to something bigger than myself. So it's always there, Dan. I think one thing about the WHY.os is it was always there. Now we just know how to put some language around it.
Yeah, I hear that. I hear that all the time from people that I work with, especially when I do happen to work with coaches. Coaches are pretty self-aware, and CEOs by the time they make it to CEO, they're usually pretty self-aware. So they're like, yeah, exactly. I knew that, but I love the language that I have now for how to communicate to people, why I do what I do, how I go about it, and what it is they can count on from me. And that's really the beautiful language. So you took us to your faith journey, your prayer session, and making an important decision that I'm sure Kathy appreciates that you made, and I'm sure you're probably so very thankful that you chose Kathy over TNT, because it sounds like you've created a great life together. Tell us a little bit. I always want to dig into this fun stuff. You were in the sports broadcasting industry. What's tell us who were you? Who was the best team you covered? I'd love to hear a highlight from that career. Who are you covering, and what was a great highlight from that experience?
Well, so many stories. I produced over 1,000 live sporting events. I did Major League Baseball for 11 years. So, in 10 days, you've done 10 games. So 1,000 can come pretty quickly. There have been, I think, 22 or 23 perfect games in Major League Baseball history. So that means no hits, no base runners, 27 up, 27 down. And I produced 2 of those games. Mike Witt in 1984 and Kenny Rogers in 1994. In fact, that was the last baseball game I ever produced, because the next day the Major League Baseball went on strike and I got out of television in 95. So the last game I ever did was a perfect game. I probably couldn't top that. My favorite story that's most painful, though, is we just are in the middle of the NFL playoffs. There's a famous game in 1982, January 10th, I believe. And I know that date because of how painful it's seared in my memory. I was working as a sports producer at a local television station in Dallas. It was my first job out of school. And we went to San Francisco, where the Cowboys, America's team, were playing the upstart 49ers. And the Cowboys led the whole game. In the fourth quarter late, Joe Montana brought the 49ers down the field. And on third and forever, he throws the ball up. And Dwight Clark, and people have seen this video at some point in their lives, he jumps up and he catches the ball on the end of his fingertips. The 49ers score. The Cowboys turn it over at midfield with less than a minute left, and the 49ers win 28-27. The Cowboys lose. And I was standing so close to that play. I was right there. I was gripping, which means I was holding a recorder deck for our photographer, different world then, big camera, big deck. And I saw that ball coming. And that cost me my only trip I ever had a chance to go to the Super Bowl. So it's seared in my memory. And every time I see it, I just roll my eyes. Here's the best part of that story. Years later, when I was a senior in high school, we won the state championship in basketball. And so I got our team back together 10 years after that, so 1988. And we had a fundraiser for our school, playing the Cowboys Hoopsters team. So former Cowboys came. And I was emceeing it. And Ed Too Tall Jones was the guy that was rushing Montana with his hands up in the air, and he threw it right over his hands. And Ed Too Tall Jones is on the Hoopsters. And I, as the MC, while the game is going on, Ed made a great play. And I go, wow, I wished you'd have jumped that high against Joe Montana. And immediately I thought, dang, I wish I hadn't said that. And he called timeout and came, 6'7", I think, came and stood over and looked. I'm 6 foot tall, looked down at me and said, what did you say? And I literally thought that was it. And he started laughing. So that was my moment in sports television that I'll never forget, is that pass, the catch, as it's known now.
The catch is what it's known as. And you were so close you could hear him breathing.
Yeah.
Oh man, yeah, that's painful for a Dallas Cowboy. Anybody, almost everybody in Texas except for the Houston Texans fans, right? But man, yeah, that's a great memory. That's so fun that you got to MC a basketball game and razz him a little, right?
Yeah, well,
Ed Jones
he was a good sport. I probably should have kept my mouth shut.
Yeah, that's one of those that you say it and you're like, no, come back here, right? So David, you're also a golfer, but you snuck something in there. I want to make sure I talk about this. You are a state champion basketball player.
Oh, well, not really. I was the manager of that team because I was 6 foot in the 8th grade and pretty good, and I was 6 foot in 12th grade and didn't make the team. So the coach kindly said, "Why don't you sit next to me on the bench?" So I do get to claim it, but I was not one of the players. Yeah.
And listen, you played a part in, and you played in the previous 3 years, and you get a ring, right? We've had a reunion every 10 years since then. It will be 50 years in a couple of years. I can't believe it. Yeah, time flies by, and it's so good to have those fun memories. I love that. So, and Texas State champion is no small thing. You know, there's a lot of schools. So, congratulations, David, for being a part of that. Didn't want to forget that. But you're also a golfer, and we talked a little bit about getting to play some golf. So, how's your golf game right now? I know. Some people, and I know some people are going to tune out when they hear that, but I want to hear how David's doing. We played, and you're a pretty good player.
Well, right now it's kind of non-existent. Business has really taken my focus since October. And plus, we go to University of Texas football games, so my weekends are kind of packed. I do intend, though, we're having some great weather. I think we're in a La Nina, so not a lot of bad weather. It's warmer, and I have it on the calendar starting at the end of the month to get back out. My handicap went from 8.5 to 10 this year, Dan, so it's not good. I have a 70-year-old brother who has a 4 handicap, and it's kind of embarrassing to have that, but I'll get back.
He's probably got a lot more time to practice.
He does.
We had the high this Sunday was 44 degrees. And there's a Saturday group that I get invited to all the time, and they put out the email, and my family's like, "Aren't you going to go play?" And I'm like, "It's going to be like 32 degrees when we tee off. There's I don't know that I want to do that." And there was 4 guys that went out, and they sent out a picture of themselves. It's New Mexico, even if it's 40 degrees, if there's no wind, the sun's out, you get hot. You literally end up having to take off your stocking cap. But you got to get out there and start. And now I just decided to stay warm this weekend. So I'm like you. Fourth quarter was really busy, and first quarter, of course, we've got to get it going before we start thinking about golf. But I think I may get out this week. We've got beautiful weather coming up, and we'll have to. I'm nowhere near you. I think I'm at 13 right now. So
you play a harder course than I do.
Yeah, that might be the case, but also single digits is hard to keep, right? But you've only got a couple of good rounds away from being back in the 9.9. So and I'm looking forward to getting some strokes from you when I go to Houston. So that'll.
I think you beat me by 5 when we played on your course. So we'll just call it even and see what happens.
See, David's already always negotiating. What's exciting for you in 2026, David? What are you looking forward to?
Well, I'd be remiss if I didn't say our 3rd grandchild, so I'll start there. Beyond that, probably the chance to just continue to help people. I do enjoy coaching. Certainly, I like working with groups and helping teams become better at working together. And then finally, this project I've been working on, it's really been a wonderful motivator. So not trying to lecture anyone, but since you didn't ask for any advice, I'll give it. If you want to really find energy, do something that stretches you, do something that you don't feel you're really great at. It could be learning how to paint or creating an AI thing. I don't know, whatever it is for you. Because I have just found so much energy around that, really uplifting my spirit, my focus, my faith, my belief. And now if I can just allow it, like I mentioned, I think it's going to help a lot of people. So that's what I'm most looking forward to. And then hoping for a little bit more certainty in the world and peace on earth. That would be my 2026.
Man, allowing things to happen. I love the word. My word this year is integrated. Just to not have to be different. As I said, I might have said it in the pre-show. We want to be the same person on Sunday in the pew that we are on Monday in the office. I don't think I've ever been really disaligned, but I have been disaligned where I didn't feel so good about something I did at work. And it impacts, right? You feel that little bit of shame, like, oh man, that probably wasn't the greatest thing to do. And that was back in my corporate career. I love that, as a coach, we get to choose who we work with and kind of where we want to niche. So I'm enjoying that part of coaching. But I've got to ask this question. You've been a coach 23 years, David?
Yes.
What's the key to maintaining a successful coaching practice? Because a lot of us get into it. I think the stats are, 50% or 90% don't make it through year one. I'm struck. I tell my wife I didn't start this as a nonprofit in year one, but that's what it turned into. But we want to be successful, profitable, and make a difference. What do you say to someone who's just starting out, or maybe is at a crossroads where they're thinking, man, do I get back into sports? And in my case, do I go back and manage a healthcare team again? I'm managing a large sales force for a pharmaceutical and a medical device company. What was it? Tell us about, number one, what's the secret? Or if you want to, tell us about a time that you almost quit and said, you know what, I'm going to go get back into something more stable, and you didn't, and you're so glad you didn't, because probably, like you said, 3 feet from gold, you were probably so close. And tell us about that one challenge that you had that almost made you go back, and then tell us what the secret is. I would love to hear that.
So this may come back to faith. Never, ever, ever, ever give up, as Winston Churchill said, right? I started a sports T-shirt memorabilia franchise. My brothers and I bought one when I was young. I was like 25 or 6 years old, and it failed. And eventually that franchise went out of business because they had the idea of come to us and you can buy all the stuff. And it was a great idea, except then everybody started selling it. So we lost our niche, and learned a hard lesson there, cost some money. But I also learned, okay, it didn't cripple us. We just will move on. And so after 3 careers, when I decided to become a coach, and this really was Kathy's mention to me, was, look, you just got to make this work. You can't do this for a couple of years and then go do something else. So whatever it takes, focus on making it work. Right. And so what would I tell someone? Find a smaller niche that you can serve. For me, it was franchising. That gave me a base. That allowed me to become a better coach, because when you start out for a coach, just like when you start out delivering a WHY.os to someone, you need reps. And I've joked, if I ever win the lottery, I'm probably going to give the money back to everybody I coached the first year, because I really wasn't that good of a coach. It was more, oh, you should try this, or here's what I've seen others do, versus what could you do? So I would say that never give up, find a niche, believe in yourself, and then start expanding out. The grace of God and my faith and your faith, Dan, whatever it is, the universe to someone, I just got a lucky break where I was doing some work, and this is a great idea too, work underneath someone. I was working under a group here that was allowing me to coach at a higher level, and they decided to pull out of the market in Houston. So of all things, they said, look, we're leaving. They were in Chicago and Milwaukee, and they said, we just can't make it work. You can keep your clients. And I had a non-compete. So they allowed me to keep 2 big clients here, and I coached maybe 3 people. Well, I wound up coaching over 30 people at one of those large clients. And so that expanded it out. Now, I'm a spreadsheet guy. I track everything. I will tell you, when the economy sank in 2008, my business soared. In 10, it crashed. In 16, it was a bad year. 20, I lost all 3 of my major accounts in a week when COVID hit. I got one of those, we regret to inform you letters. Our business went in the tank. So I sat around and wallowed for a week, and I said, I got to figure this out. Well, it turned out to be great. I connected with other people. Things picked up. And since October of 2020, our business has really taken off. Last year was a little slower than it's been. I think there was a lot of uncertainty. Nonetheless, I maintained. And the most incredible thing that happened coming out of that was, I used to drive around Houston. If you've ever been to Houston, it's a big place.
Oh, yeah.
So I would drive downtown to the energy sector in the west part of town and then to the Woodlands, and I would get 3 coaching sessions in. Well, if I'm coaching 10 or 15 people at a time, that's a lot of my time driving around Houston, and I was exhausted at the end of the day. Well, when everybody went to Zoom, I have not coached anyone in person except one client who's very close to me, because he asked if we could, since COVID. I do show up and do workshops in person.
Right.
I do WHY.os in person, but all my one-on-one coaching has evolved to this. So what's the lesson? Don't give up, be flexible, find a niche, meet a lot of people. And then for me, it's just been referrals for many years.
Yeah, referrals are the key. And that's, I think except for those first year clients, right? But once you once you start building and making an impact, which I know you have, David, it's easy. Those people are not going to be hesitant to say, "Hey, David made a difference for me. Let's and that carries weight." What about let's go back to that I want you to take us back, David, and I want you to. So you had the moment in the chapel where you had to turn down TNT. Take us to a moment in the chapel where you were asking yourself, "Man, do I keep doing this, or is it time to turn in the notepad and do something different?" And I got to go to Kathy and explain it to her, right? This next career change, and how'd you overcome it?
So thinking back, it probably happened around 2010 because I was really loving what I did, and then it kind of just. We were late on the real estate and the economy and all that. So it hit, and I hadn't had that experience. I was like, uh-oh. So here's a piece of advice I would give anyone.
Right.
As soon as you start your business and you get some momentum, go get a line of credit at your local bank. And we had that. It cost us $125 or $50 a year to just have it. And we had to hit on it for the first time, pull from our line of credit. But it helped us. It allowed us to get over that hump. And so that was probably the one time I remember thinking, oh boy, am I going to have to go back into franchising or go get a job? And I knew I wasn't going back into television. So a greeter at Walmart might have been a possibility. But we persevered. We got over the financial. Sometimes you have to have hard conversations with people. We had 2 years ago, we had some clients that were slow paying us. And I had to have some hard conversations saying, this wasn't a charity case. We agreed to this. I have a statement of work here. And one of them was slower, but ultimately they both understood. And most of us are small business owners. So it's important to us that cash flow continues. So I would just tell everyone, make sure that you have those local relations. We have a great relation with our local bank, and I think that's very important.
Very good. Yeah, no, that's a great story and really true. I think the advice is apply for credit when you don't need it, right? That's the thing, because when you need it, your balances are down. Nobody's going to give you credit. So like you said, when you've got momentum, you've got money in the bank, that's the time to set up that line of credit. You probably don't want to use it. You don't need to use it. But if you do, it's there for you. Fabulous, fabulous. Well, David, this has been such a good conversation. We've gone from sports. We've gone from your state championship basketball team, your experience with Ed Too Tall Jones. I always worry especially when I told you this in the pre-show, when I get a Simplify person on the podcast, they tend to answer in 1 to 3 word answers. And you've done a great job keeping us live. It's probably your broadcasting experience and your MC experience allows you to elaborate on some things. One of the things I've found, and I want to ask you about it. I had a client sitting here across from me last year, same thing. He's a Simplify guy, Simplify, Better Way, Trust. So very similar to you. He said, Dan, can you do this for my wife? I have a feeling she's a Clarify. And I said, sure. What's the motivation? He's like, well, we're just not getting along, and she wants more. So I had to say, they came in here, they sat across from me, and we went through her results. We got their results up on the big screen here to my left, and I said I had to say the qualifier is I am not a counselor, I'm not a marriage therapist. I'm going to share with you some insights. These are some things that we have learned over doing this evaluation with thousands of people. But Simplify wants to probably say as few words as possible, and Clarify wants to hear as many words as possible, right? So she's looking for clarity. She wants to ask more questions, and he's looking for, hey, how can I say the least amount possible to get her to what she wants? And I said, well, tell me some examples. And she's like, well, we're going on vacation. And he says, let's go skiing. That's literally all he says. And I'm thinking, okay, where? And she says, I'm thinking, where are we going? Where are we staying? Are we flying or driving? Who's going to watch the house? We've got 2 kids. Do they have kids? All those questions. And he's like, And you know what? Those would be good questions for you to ask. And so one of the modifications they made is, he sets the big idea and she does all the detailed planning, because otherwise she's not going to get all the information she wants. Have you had any situations like that where it was just really clear that the way they thought differently caused tension either within a work group or a couple?
So I've seen it with teams I've worked with. As you were talking about that, it reminded me of the old golf joke about two guys go out and play golf and they spend 5 hours together, and to come home and the wife's asking all these questions and the husband said, I don't know, but he got a new driver, right? So That's just kind of how we are. And I think where I've seen that is when I work with teams and there's been friction or there has not been communication, and suddenly they get to understand each other and they go, oh, now I get it. And so I think the clarity, if you will, comes from understanding that we all do see things differently. And as you and I were taught, a little bit of salt good, too much salt not so good. So my ability to simplify is nice until I don't tell everybody in the workshop what they were supposed to do so that they could understand it. It's interesting. I am actually an introvert, and we tailgate at UT football games. And when I say we tailgate, for the Texas A&M game this year, we fed 240 people. So this is an all-day, get there at 6 a.m. and the game's at 7:30. And I hardly talk to anyone. My wife, who's also a Simplify, talks to everyone. And people are shocked that I can get on a podcast and do this or stand up in front of a group and MC or do a workshop, because one-on-one, I'm that 5-word guy.
Yeah. Now that's how you naturally operate. So you just fall into your natural. When you're on your own, you can be your natural self. It's interesting. It sounds like my golf trip to Houston has to include. Maybe I'll do it when there's a Texas football game going on, right?
Now there's a little distance there, so you have to kind of do it in stages. But absolutely, come to one of our tailgates.
Go to Austin, then Texas, then Houston. Yeah, I think we can make it a 3-day trip. I think. We'll have to collaborate on something, David. That would be fun. We could definitely do something like that. David, we've had a great conversation here. Is there anything I forgot to ask? Is there anything you want to
Dan,
share
you did
with
a
our
great
audience?
job. I'm as a coach, I'm usually the one asking the questions, and you're a coach, so I was glad that I could answer some somewhat intelligently.
You did a fantastic job. This has been a whole lot of fun. Guys, if you're a follower of the Lead Different podcast, we're trying to grow this channel. So if you're watching us on YouTube, make sure you subscribe, make sure you follow, make sure you let your friends know that they've got David Handler there in Houston. If somebody wants to get a hold of you and wants to work with you, David, they heard something here today that they liked, how do they get a hold of you? We'll put all that information in the show notes, but tell us real quick.
The email is really simple. When I started this 23 years ago, I used the word coach at Success Handler, our logo, coach at Success Handler, my last name.com, coach at successhandler.com.
Perfect. And you still have that same email. So coach at successhandler.com, guys. Take a look at David's website. Take a look at his program. I can vouch for him. He's a great human being. It has been a pleasure to reconnect with you, David Handler. And we'll have to see you when you get back in Albuquerque and play a round of golf. But for now, guys, we'll see you next week. David, what do you say we end the show on that note?
Why not?
Thank you so much, David. Everybody, have a great rest of the week. Between now and then, don't forget to lead different. Have a great week.
This is Lead Different.
Subscribe now. Discover a new era of leadership. Lead different, because great leaders change the world.